Hey there, Chris Waters here, the Australian Huntsman, and recently I was lucky enough to have a conversation with Mark and Ian on their podcast, the Hunters Campfire, which is an amazing podcast. It's a fairly new podcast. Ian and Mark are just incredible men, wise hunters, full of knowledge and wisdom. You should definitely check out their podcast. It's designed to connect Australian hunters with public land hunting locations. So a noble pursuit in my mind. But in this podcast episode, we talk about pig dogging, we talk about the difficulties of portraying violence in hunting and YouTube in an appropriate way. We talk about the supermarket apocalypse. It's a fantastic episode. I've just linked here in this video. You can see the shortened version, which kind of cuts out some of the stuff at the start about hunting trips to Australia, which I'm sure you're probably bored of. But if you go want to check out that full episode, check out the Hunters Campfire's YouTube channel. Again, link is below for that. Subscribe to them. Otherwise, let's throw to the rest of the episode. Hope you enjoy.
It's interesting to hear that you say that you're trying to build a respectful hunting culture within the channel, because it comes across very fresh. Almost the city guy that's going hunting rather than the country guy. And this is going to get taken completely the wrong way, but I looked at someone up the other day, and it was a dude standing over an animal with a wound facing the camera and a smoke hanging out of his mouth, and it just looked bad. And you think, holy! And then you flick over to old Fresh Chris Waters, YouTube channel, and it's very respectful and polite, and upbeat and happy, and I always sort of laugh at the grim photo of the kill. We're all I shot a deer. Here's Chris.
Yeah. Well,
different.
What's funny is that I legitimately am a country guy. Like I live in a small town in Victoria, and I made the move from the city because I didn't like those values. So it's interesting that I come across as a city guy. Maybe I still have a lot of city guy in me. I've got to burn that out. But it's funny, all of the different hunting subcultures that exist. Like you got your deer guys, you got your deer trophy guys, you got your harvesters, you got your shooters who will just like shoot anything. I don't have a lot to do with the pig dog culture, and I'm really interested in that. I don't fully understand it, and there's things in that culture that kind of like I go, oh, that's it's hard to watch an animal.
It's offensive, but it shouldn't be, because I'm a hunter.
Shouldn't be. Exactly. And it's not necessarily that it shouldn't be. It's that I don't feel like I understand this, and I want to understand this. And I want to find the similarities between the values that we share, because we clearly do. I think sometimes there's a bit of, like you've said, there's a bit of a marketing or branding issue with some guys that produce a lot of content, in that they don't think about that and how it might come across, whether that's that guy who's having the cigarette, the fag, and he's sitting over a deer. Like, if you want to smoke, that's awesome. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it's like, if you think, like, have a think about what that might look like, and the image that someone might perceive that. I'm very conscious of how I'm perceived, because I know that even being super sensitive and trying to be mindful about it, that people still get the wrong idea all the time. People all the time. And so, especially, and you're on YouTube, you're like basically a poster boy for, like, go throw your darts. Like, here's the dartboard, shoot away. Like, that's what you do when you jump on YouTube, and you need to be okay with that. And you need to be confident with the reasons why you made the decisions, and think carefully about the decisions that you want to make, because the darts will come.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's very true. And look, the link between what you were talking about there is that idea of social license and influencing the social license of hunting. There's this argument that there's the legislative argument, and there's the moral argument, and there's the practical argument about food gathering and so on and so forth. But then there's this weird thing called social license, which is basically, what is the wider society's license for you to operate? What do they think about it? And I think that reflects, your video that you're putting together is going to have an effect on that. It's going to, and it's either going to be positive or negative. It's going to have an effect. You're not going to be able to not have an effect. So you've got to think about what that effect. And strangely enough, someone who talks about this a lot is Ned Macon, who is probably one of the best and well-known pig dog guys around, and so his role within that organisation and in that in that industry, or that certainly that area he sits, he's given a great deal of thought about the social license of what of dogging has, and and how to position it. And so he's very much about what you're going to do is hard to look at, but you can portray it in a very positive way.
Sure.
Yeah,
it is, because it is. I mean, look, dogging's it's serious stuff. It's quite visceral. You're right there at the you're right there at the pointy or no, you're 6 inches away from the pointy end type thing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Or 12 inches, depending on what you're carrying. But you're right there at the pointy end, so that you need to. People are going to see that, and then there's no hiding from what they're going to see too. And the interesting thing is too, it's unfortunately, for a long time, no one would have thought there was anything wrong with that at all. It's only quite recent that there's a challenge to that, that's not necessarily a good thing. But, hunting with dogs is, there's a pretty good chance that, we use dogs to hunt before we had them in our beds. You know what I mean?
There's a good chance.
If you think about it, we probably they were more hunting, and that was the dog for the greater period of time of human interaction than the Labradoodle that has its own, has its own cell phone that sits in your house type thing. That's a new invention. Hunting with a dog is a very, very old invention, and so it's weird how that's shifted so much. And I mean, the deer guys unfortunately suffered from that in Victoria, if I remember correctly. They used to be able to hunt deer differently with dogs. Now they certainly could still hunt, but the way that, and I think that all came down to a video of a dog attacking a deer. I think that's where it all came apart. That idea, and that was a dog that engaged with the deer rather than bailed or drove a deer like what the hound guys do. But I mean, for me, that what the hound guys do is really, really something special. I'd really love to be part of that. That
impressive.
Hunting with the dog is a really interesting thing. If you haven't ever done it, it's hard to explain. There's I've hunted with my Labrador only a couple of times, and Ian hunts with the dog, and it's a very different thing to do. And I wish I could do more of it, but I'm just not in a position to do it.
What's beautiful about it, I think, because of my brother, he hunts with a hound, and I hunt with him quite a lot up in the high country. And Misty, his hound, she's just beautiful, and she's incredibly intelligent, and she's a better hunter than me by far.
So is she a hound, or as in, is she a bailer, or is she an indicator?
She's an indicator, so she's a pointer. And she there's this beautiful, and I've only hunted with just her and me a few times. Most of the time I'm hunting with my brother, and she's tagging along. I'm tagging along really because they're hunting really well, and I'm trying to help. But there's this beautiful relationship where, because there's a relationship between the hunter and the prey that exists normally, and this bond and this respect and this game that's played. And then you introduce like a third party, a partner in that. And then all of a sudden there's this really interesting, beautiful dynamic between you and your partner, and reading the dog and respecting the dog and trusting the dog's decisions, and trusting the dog will, especially with a pointer, not go crazy and just go jump on the deer. Like it will help you and it will assist you until you're ready to take the shot. And then that kind of trifecta of like relationships is established between all three of you. And it's like you've definitely experienced this, I'm sure, guys, where you take someone out hunting and you see them make their first kill, and there's this really special moment that you get to experience, and this joy that's almost like you get more joy seeing someone else make that kill and have that experience than taking the shot yourself. And then every time that you hunt with the dog, you get to share in that the dog's enthusiasm. And like Misty, whenever a kill is made, like the dog points, you take the shot, and the deer runs off, and then you're like, go get her. And Misty's off like a bullet, going after and tracking the blood. And then she'll find the deer. And then she's excited. She's all over the deer. She's jumping. She's kind of blade biting its ears and just
plucking it.
Ecstatic. Yeah, licking up the blood. And it's just like you get to celebrate together. And that's a really special moment. Like regarding what you were saying about the picked mark, I don't think any of us have an issue with the violence of what's occurring. Because the violence in itself is not necessarily a bad thing, depending on, if it's sloppy and it's disrespectful, I'm sure that we definitely have an issue with that. But there is a level of violence that happens in any kill, whether it's deer or pig or goat or fox or rabbit, whatever it is, there's the element of violence that leads to death. But it's being respectful and understanding the relationship that exists between you and that animal and the cost. And the issue is that for people creating content on YouTube, they're coming up with all of these different agendas. And there's an adrenaline element, and then there's a filming and technical element, and then there's restrictions on getting the shots and, but being present in the hunt. And there's all of these things that make it really difficult to maintain that balance between communicating the reality of what's happening and the values that are being demonstrated with the violence that's happening at the same time. And unfortunately, like you said, that public license can really work against you if you're not careful in that space. And it's difficult to be careful. It's a lot of work. And you naturally spend all this time filming it and getting this kill, and all you want to do is upload it because you're excited and you want people to see it and you want people to respond to it and engage with it. And that can be a pitfall as well, because no, you need to sit with this. You need to think carefully about how you edit this. You need to make sure that what happened is okay and that it's portrayed in the right way, because again, there is 1% of the world that just want to see it burn, regardless of whether you've worked really hard to portray it in the right way or not. But there's also a lot of decent people that could be offended if you didn't portray it correctly.
Yeah, look, it's a good point. And the fact that there is that inherent violence involved in, by the name kill kind of gives it away, doesn't it? But and I think for a lot of people, especially in the life that a lot of people live, they don't see that. Yeah, they're not in an environment where that happens often. So I think for a start, that can be quite confronting to a lot of people. That by its very nature. And if you hunt and you're in any way successful, you've seen it firsthand. You know what happens. And I think there's those areas where it's kind of devolved away from that. Fishing's a great example. There's the catch and release fishing culture is all pervasive now, and so there's people who fish only catch and release, don't ever take food for, and I think in a way, at least some of them, they're kind of kidding themselves. They're kind of going, well, I'm putting it back in the water and
it floats away with its air bladder.
Nemo, and it's going to find its dad, and it's it's going to live happily after. Whereas probably not. It's probably going to go down at the bottom, and another fish is going to snapple it while it's recovering. It's going to, or it's not going to be a successful release anyway. Whereas what we do, there is no catch and release. You have to make that decision, and how that you portray that decision, and also the consequences of that decision, I think is very, very important. In fact, it's probably the most important thing, because that's what's going to be confronting to people. They're going to go, ooh. And it's even like if you've ever had anyone who you've had around firearms for the first time, and they when they're used to seeing movies, and then they hear it for real, they kind of go, oh, hang on, that's a lot more scary and loud, and there's recoil and lots of noise and all sorts of things. Whereas I've seen it on TV and it's kind of quite controlled and so on. So I think that's just with operating a firearm, let alone operating it to take an animal. So I think that's really important, that whatever you're doing, that portraying that, or giving, not even portraying it, but giving consideration to how it will be portrayed is probably one of the most important things you can do.
Yeah.
We've talked about this before. I think with Andrew, we spoke about this a little bit about taking, this is Andrew Day, who we had on earlier, and we were talking about that that moment that you're with a hunter and it's their first time with an animal in their sights, and they've got to make that decision for the first time in their life if that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I think we spoke a little bit about, you know, how much do you need to know that person before you take them into that experience? Because, you know, as a mentor and someone that takes these people out, you kind of want to know how they're going to react to a point, right? Because you're not their counsellor. You know, if things go slightly awry, and things can happen, right? I'm not talking about dangerous things to yourself necessarily. I'm just talking about how people are going to react in that situation. Then it can be quite interesting. And, you know, I know that, you know, people in hunting clubs will take new members out and they'll spend a lot of time getting them into a position where they can take an animal, and that new shooter opts out. And it can be incredibly frustrating for the mentor. So, you know, there's all of those things to consider, I think, as well. And we've got this upcoming trip next week. We leave. I've got a bunch of people coming. There's 6 of us in total, and there are 3 fairly new hunters, and at least 2 of them I know have not yet taken the life of an animal. And we're gonna, and we've chosen this place. It's quite safe for us to do it. I've got some good people around us that can support those members, and that's the goal, to help them through that process. And 2 of them have said they're not really sure how that's going to go for them in the moment.
Wow.
Right? One of them particularly, top bloke, really nice fella, has spent the last year going through shooting his first rifle, small calibers up to the next caliber, and then up to a larger caliber, has purchased his first hunting rifle. He's taken a lot of advice and support from the group, and this will be his first outing. And I'm excited for him. I'm excited for me to be able to help him with that. But, you know, you've got to put yourself in check as well and make sure that, you know, you give him that excellent experience that he's looking. Not that I'm a guide or anything like that, but you know, there's a whole lot of, you don't know how they're going to react, and there's a whole lot of respect that needs to go with it. So it's not just outwardly on the YouTube side that you need to do that. It's in person with people as well that you've got to be careful with it, because you build that that culture with them, around them as they're participating, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious as to whether this has always been a factor that's been at play with humanity and society, or whether this is a relatively new thing with the, you know, the kind of the birth of the modern age, and everyone's interconnected, and we have lots of social media, and we're moving closer to, you know, mass production of meat, and moving away from gathering and harvesting. Like, I'm curious, like, was this an issue in like the 1600s, where you know, I don't know, men who were taken out for the first time hunting and shot an animal and were like, oh, like getting my hands dirty, they're inside the carcass and they're removing the, like, was this an issue then? Like, I'm curious. Like, I don't know the answer. I'm wondering how much of this is just a human condition, and the fact that death and violence are uncomfortable by their very nature, and that's just always something that human beings have struggled with, or whether this is a relatively modern issue that's arisen from the fact that we're so far removed from the protein that we consume. I don't know the answer, but maybe
I think Mark is going to be the most qualified person here to answer that.
He's looking at the ceiling.
My uneducated. Well, let me just get Andrew on the phone. Hang on a sec. We'll see if we can ring him in. No, I mean, I think it's a modern issue. Yeah. You know, in a hunter-gatherer society that we all were before, you would go through this daily. I'm reading a book. I've been reading a book for 6 months. I've read lots of books, but one I've been reading for 6 months called Sapiens. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's a brief history of mankind. It's a fascinating read that gets your mind going around how we've ended up in the situation that we are, and the predictions of what we will become because of it. But he talks in one of the chapters. He talks about how we were the happiest society on record when we were hunters and gatherers, when we were subsistence livers, when we went out every day and engaged our bodies and our brains to get meat, to forage and do these sorts of things, right? And that's when we were happy, and that's when these things still mattered, but not like they do now. You know, it's different now that people are putting more thought into it because they're removed from it. We became a lesser society when we learnt horticulture, that revolution that came along, and family A learnt to grow potatoes, and they grew them en masse, and they lived on potatoes, and they didn't have time to go and eat meat. They just ate potatoes. Yeah. And they might trade some, but really they didn't engage their brains and their muscles and their human instinct to go and survive anymore. Someone else grew grapes and someone else grew pigs, whatever. But you get the point. We lost all of that capability. I'm really interested. You go through this book and you end up really thinking about how fast society is moving. You know, because all of this technology age and all of the things that we live and breathe today, they've only happened in the last couple of decades.
Yeah.
Right. Your grandparents weren't doing this.
No.
Right. And I think being removed from everything is becoming a mental challenge for us.
Yeah.
Or for those that don't participate, Mark, in nature.
The idea of foraging it only went out the window, you know, in the 50s. People still foraged then, you know, if not more. You know, you talk to anyone who lived through the Depression, and they'll tell you that rabbits and top-knot pigeons is basically what got most of Australians through. When you look at, you know, so if you look at the United States, and one of the reasons why they nearly ran out of animals, game animals, was because of the that meat market. So, you know, places that, you know, places that were established at, like, for a gold rush or something like that, there would be miners, but there would be people who fed the miners, and there would be guys who went out and hunted, you know, that deer or bear or whatever it is, and that was what the miners would eat. Someone would be out there literally doing that, going out, and, you know, and they're the people who basically nearly wiped out deer species, because, you know, there was just too many people to feed with game animals. But I think even as a miner, whilst you might not have been killing that, the way that you would have seen the butchering and all that right in front of you. So, you know, you might have been one step away. And I think what's happened over time is that we've become, you know, we've kept on stepping away, if you know what I mean, or I don't know if it's stepping back or stepping forward or whatever it is. Let's call it stepping away. But you've stepped away. So, you know, like Coles don't even have butchers in the butcher shop in the Coles anymore. So there's not even so that meat that you get in Coles is not even processed in Coles anymore by someone who's got a cut of meat, he's making it in a smaller cut of meat and wrapping it in a plastic, you know.
When did that happen?
That's only just happened.
I was going to say, because I've spoken to the butchers at the supermarket.
Yeah, it's only a new thing. They're saying, we're getting rid of the butchers. So basically, so that'll come in, you know, But when I was at uni, one of the places that we went to for whatever reason, and I can't quite explain you why. There was lots of pretend reasons they threw it up. We actually went to the abattoirs.
Fantastic. What were you studying?
Well, it was ostensibly health and safety.
Psychology.
But it wasn't art.
It was psychology. That's what I did. I did a psychology degree. So ostensibly it was about health and safety and about also automation. It was lots of things about automation and the way that they use machines to control workforces and all sorts of wonderful things like that. But we went there and, like, you know, they didn't take you into the kill room, but they took you in. You saw it come out dead on the hook. And then, you know, and it was like some kind of evil mousetrap where, you know, animals went in, and it was almost like, you know, some kind of cartoon music would be going like do 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 do, and, you know, it just got smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it was in the box and it was gone. And that was the whole animal, you know, and they were doing that, you know, 1,500 head a day or something like that. Yeah. And so, you know, that within a very short time, I went from a cow, cattle on a truck to something in a box. So, and if I had never gone there, you know, and I was a person who hadn't hunted, I'd have no real concept of how that thing at Coles, that, you know, that piece of meat that I'm going to argue with, you know, that costs $89 a kilo, and I'm going to get in a fist fight because I've cooked it for 2.5 minutes as opposed to 2 minutes to 15 on the side. That I wouldn't know, had idea how that come, you know, from Clarabelle to that would have been completely lost on me. And I think one of the big indicators of that is the fact that we now celebrate eating and cooking far more than we celebrate the provision of the food. So, you know, MasterChef, all of that stuff is about eating, consuming. None of it's about, you know, it's, you know, oh, look at this wonderful, you know, how do you do this? None of it's about, oh, how did I get that piece of meat, or how did I get that, you know, the spinach or this fennel or whatever it is that I'm, you know, I'm outrageously overproducing. None of it's about that. It's all about how to consume it. And I like to say, when you go to the cave paintings or you look at the cave paintings, it's never about, there's no cave painting of like 12 cavemen sitting around while another caveman's in the
Tossing
middle,
a
you know,
salad.
tossing the salad. You know, it's not about that. It's never about the consumption.
It's a celebration of the hunt, isn't it?
It's about the animal.
Yep.
It's about this thing that is so mystical to you and about your pursuit of it.
Yeah.
It's never like, you know, there's never like a picture of this, you know, like the Last Supper type thing of cavemen all around, you know, kind of, you know, throwing in, you know, like doing all this stuff and all that stuff. None of that.
There's also no pictures of fat cavemen.
Well, that's it.
They're all pretty lean.
Yeah. You realize, yeah.
Well, what I think
and then,
is...
Hunt 5 days and you realise, you know, you can eat fat, you can eat liver, whatever you want, because, you know, the input-output ratio is certainly on the right side of the scales now. It's not like, oh, I can't touch that. That's a bit of a fatty cut. No, you want that in you. And I mean, if you ever watch Meat Eater, you know, that's one of the big talks about the fact that, you know, all these mountain men, they went for the fattiest because that's where you know, that's where the nutrients are.
I think the greatest travesty that not a lot of people talk about is that it's going to what you were saying, Ian, as well as the human condition and where we are and where we're going. The really sad thing, the real travesty, is that we're all advocates for going out and harvesting meat. We raise pigs at our property, and we very, very, very rarely buy meat. We've got just freezers full of deer and pigs and stuff and chickens. If we had our way, like the three of us, and we increased the amount of people who were harvesting wild game, we would get to the point where there's no wild game left. Like the amount of human beings and the size of the human population is we can't actually sustain what we've got in the wild. So if you took every single person on the planet and my wife and I joke about this quite a lot, and we talk about the supermarket apocalypse would be like our favorite apocalypse, like just a really localized one where all the supermarkets just explode and then everyone has to figure out what to do. And like, there's no zombies or anything. It's no like Jesus coming back. It's literally just like
zombies.
Yeah. Well, I'm a fan of the zombies.
Zombies.
Something to shoot at. But no. So it's just the supermarket's gone. If that happened, we would destroy the earth. We would just destroy every living thing because we're so accustomed to eating the amount of meat that we do eat. And if people were motivated enough to get off their butts and go out and harvest it, we would just like destroy everything. So we're in this really sad position at the moment where we're wanting to encourage this activity, wanting people to go out there, and especially in places like New South Wales and Victoria where you have access to public land, it's like go out there and harvest deer and harvest pigs and all these different things. But there's this balance between the resource that's available, the politics that go into governing that resource, and the amount of people that can actually do that successfully. Like, that's a finite amount. And I don't know where we are on that scale. You hear people say that there's no deer around, I can't seem to find a deer. And you have people saying, oh my goodness, the deer are everywhere. We need more hunters killing them. Like, it's hard to know.
You look, what I would say to that, and that is certainly a very compelling argument, because from the face value, it's true. Like, not everyone who could Australia, you couldn't. That's right. If you wanted to get rid of the deer, you just say, look, everyone, go out and shoot a deer, and there'd be no deer left. Literally, would take us a couple of years, and we'd get them all.
Yeah, a lot of hungry people, Mark.
That's right. But I think what the argument is, and that's the idea that hunting by itself has to be selective because you want to have a future of hunting. So, and that's why when people say, "Oh, hunters just like to kill everything," you go, "Well, no, in fact, I don't. If I wanted to kill everything, I wouldn't be spending all this money because I want this to continue." So you don't want to kill everything. But what I would say is the challenge to that apocalypse, or that idea that you can't have everyone hunting because of that. I think the answer is everyone doesn't have to hunt.
Yeah.
But if everyone participated at some level in the production of their own food, so even if that means if you live in an inner city apartment, you've got a flower box that you grow fennel in, or you hunt, or you do this, or you fish, or you even go to the fish markets and see the fish. I think that is the balance point. So it doesn't have to be this consumption model. It has to be and I think that's the model is a consumption model. I think it has to move from a consumption model to a participation model.
That word comes up all the time, doesn't it? Participation.
Yeah. It's a participation model. You've got to say, you know what? I'm going to grow a tomato plant. Now I don't expect that this will replace my purchasing of tomatoes for the rest of my life. It might not even, replace, a season. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grow something, or I'm going to fish, or I'm going to hunt, or I'm going to do something. And I think if we had more of that, we would have a lot better balance about that. Or look, I'm even going to go out and pick my own strawberries. Or that kind of thing. I think the idea of some participation in your food is really important.
I think it is a great point. I think it's something that needs to be considered more. I drive past Australia's Food Bowl on my way to my city office in Brisbane from time to time. And this is the Lockyer Valley, and it's where a lot of the green produce is produced for Coles and Woolworths. I'm talking thousands of acres of broccoli and thousands of acres of cauliflower. Have you ever tried to grow those things? I couldn't grow 4 of them. You go to Bunnings and you go and pick yourself a punnet of these and you put them in your garden. You're probably doing better than I am, Chris, because you're moving to this sort of lifestyle. But certainly a lot of us had a crack at it during COVID when we all got locked into homes, and Bunnings was sold out of all of the fresh produce, and we were participants in that. We went and stocked our gardens up. We were already growing stuff, but then I had to wait for it.
Yeah,
for
that's a really good point.
4 months before I could harvest a single broccoli head. So,
gangly broccoli.
This pathetic looking thing. And, old mate down the road, he's got thousands of acres of broccolis and every one of them perfect. He understands what he's doing, of course, and there's a whole bunch of things that go into that. I get it. But participating like Mark's talking about probably allows you to value food even more than you ever have done, because you realise how hard and how much thought, and it's the same with hunting. The effort that goes into taking that goat or taking that deer, we talked about this with others as well. Every time you plate a piece of that up, you pull it out of the freezer and it's got the date and the animal and, potentially where you got it from. That's how I package mine up and throw them in the freezer. It comes out and I can remember the hunt and I remember what it was, and it's going to be a discussion with your friends when it's at a barbecue and those sorts of things. But you certainly appreciate how much effort goes into it. And you'll do this with your pigs, giving a pig away to one of your family members for the price it costs you to raise it. I think I heard in a chat that you had, you could buy it at Coles for the same amount, but it's a different pig. Yeah, and it's a different process, and you're not connected to it. And it's
I think you raise a great point in that in the participation model there is a buffer that protects the animals. because, like you said, that there is time that has to go into it, and there is a success rate that has to go into it, whether it's growing broccoli or harvesting a deer. And that failure rate, I guess, is Mother Nature's way of protecting herself. And so deer are really smart. Sambar are like ghosts. Like you see them and then they evaporate, and you don't even hear them, but they're like a 230 kilo deer running full speed through the bush on the same, crunchy material that you're walking on, and you don't hear them. And so I guess if there was a supermarket apocalypse and it did go down to a participation model, I think you're right that there would be this natural buffer that even the people who are participating would help protect, and it already does with the people who are. So yeah, great points.
Yeah,
thank you for finding the name for our podcast, by the way.
Yeah,
the supermarket apocalypse will be.
I mean, like, I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, and it's actually more than a couple, because we had my wife's family out from England, so that that was 2018, maybe before. Went to a friend's place for Christmas, and on the menu was a pig that we had shot.
Nice.
Okay? Now, I did not realise that everyone hated eating that tough old boar, because I thought I was eating pure honey. I thought this was like, this is the most tasty meal I had. Yeah, that's it. And it was simply because I saw it. I saw that whole process.
You couldn't not like it.
Yeah,
your brain wouldn't let you.
It's like, people.
It's the same like gangly bit of broccoli. You're like, what a beautiful broccoli.
I know.
I realised how much people disliked it because it was, they said, oh, it's so tough and chewy, and I thought, what? It's like, was it the same party? Was it a different place?
But it's right?
The link between the food was it was an immediate link between the food.
If you went and picked up an apple at Coles that had a bug hole in it, you'd put it back and go for another one. You'll cut around that.
Mate,
no problems whatsoever.
If they got a little thing, I just spit that out. And
no way are you going to do that at Coles.
Oh yeah.
No way. All right. Well, that's great. Okay. Well, here we are. I told you that this would go on. It doesn't take long to cover a couple of hours. We're a little way through that now, and we haven't yet touched on the Hunting Trips Australia's hunting club. So I want to draw all of our attention to that because we've got people that will be listening to this that know they listen in for new opportunities and things to go and research and do. So let's talk about that. So you've done your YouTube thing, the Australian Huntsman. People will go and find you and have a look at the city hunter that we talk about, even though you're from the country. But this fresh face of hunting, which is quite good. So you've done that. You've had 4 or 5 months now of Hunting Trips Australia. That's been a great success, and it will grow. I'm sure it will grow, and more people will understand it. And look, there are outfitters that we know that we're going to point in your direction, and hopefully they can land on your page. And I'd like more and more opportunities out of Queensland to go on there. And I know I went on there and had a quick scan in the filters, and I was able to find some. So we'll have a look at what that can drum up for us in our spare time when we need to find another hunt. There are still a few around for us poor Queenslanders that can't hunt on public land. There are ways of getting your fill. The year is absolutely jam-packed already, so it's okay, but it could be better. So then the new thing that you've launched in this new year, literally only a couple of weeks ago, if not only a week ago, is what I thought was called the new Hunting Club Australia. It has 2 different versions of names, but essentially it's the Hunting Club attached to Hunting Trips Australia. Tell us about that.
So I think I've been not struggling, but I've been putting all this effort into building this platform to connect hunters, and I want to move and position myself to do that more, and be released to do that more. And so to do that, you need to have money, you need to have revenue. And so I thought, well, what's something that I can do? What do I have at my fingertips? Access that I have, relationships that I've developed, that I can pull together to bring something of value to people that people want to buy or support, that can enable me to do this more, so that we can continue to see positive hunting culture spread through this country. And there's some fantastic people that I have in my life that through meeting through various hunting things, Facebook groups and stuff, that share the same values. And one of them is Phil from the HSSA, Hunters and Shooters Association. Hunters Sporting Shooters Association, or some configuration of that. And we were having a conversation and just brainstorming ideas, and he really got me onto the idea of a hunting club and using these relationships I have with outfitters to pull value in and offer free guided hunts as part of this club, leveraging the relationships that I have with retailers, hunting trip product providers, from the Huntsman, and all these various things, the YouTube channel, access to content, to pull it all together in a hunting club and platform. And so that's what I've done, and spent a lot of time building it into the platform and wanting to make it fresh and wanting to do things a little bit differently than some of the other bigger clubs out there, wanting to be as personable and authentic as possible, as well as having a platform that provides as much value as possible. Because I've done a lot of research out there, and there seems to be clubs that are really, really heavy on the insurance and genuine reason, and that's kind of why they exist. And then you have some clubs that are all about the social stuff, and then you have some clubs that are literally just like a subscription to get free stuff or the chance to win free stuff. And I think that individually they miss a large part of what it's all about. And so I wanted to kind of pull everything together and provide a club that had value for people, and offer it at a monthly rate for people as well. So that's what the club is.
And it's virtual.
So at the moment it's virtual, yeah. So there is a camp that I'll be running in October that you can come to, and that will be the first kind of in-person thing. But I'm thinking as well about having some gatherings and meets, informal things throughout the year, and I'm trying to lock them down too, because what I want to avoid is it just being a digital thing. And I know that it's really tempting to do that. You can make a lot more money. It's a lot less effort to do that. And that's where people naturally just land nowadays, given that we're all working from home or everything's very, very digital. But even though I'm an isolationist by nature, I prefer to be alone. That's when I'm energized. I see the value, especially in hunting and with communities, of meeting together and having face-to-face conversations, having a beer, having a laugh, sharing stories, sharing life together. And so I want to make sure there's as much of that as possible. So that's something that I'm wanting to build into the club as it grows.
And you talk about value that's packed into the membership. I noticed there's 3 layers of membership. Do you want to talk us through those? Have you got them off the top of your head, or you need to pull up a website?
Well, maybe, how about I try and go off the top of my head, and if you have a website, you can correct me.
Yeah, good. Let's go. This is nearly accurate. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Nearly. So there's a basic tier, which is $9.99 a month if you want to go monthly. If you go yearly and pay for a whole year in one installment, you get $9.99 off it. And that includes your membership as access to the dashboard, access to various discounts with online hunting stores. So at the moment, we've got Hunters Warehouse in there. We've got Bush Edge in there, who are fantastic. This is yet to be announced, but hey, you'll get the drop on this. Blackfoot, who just make amazing, and I'm not even just spruiking this and pumping up their tires because it's on the platform, but they make amazing custom hunting gear, custom camo, literally stitched and cut out, and like in New South Wales, like one guy doing it from his shed, but like really good. And he's jumping on board. There's courses, you can like R license through HSSA. There's Wally, who has Naturally Sufficient, which is like a holistic lifestyle type courses around permaculture and hunting and harvesting and stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of stuff. There's that. You get early access to the Huntsman content on YouTube, so you get a week in advance before anyone else sees it in the public. And you also get what else? There's one more thing: an invitation to the camp, plus some resources and stuff too. So you can go, and there's just some things like pre-hunt checklist you can get. There's like targets you can download visiting your rifle, stuff like that.
And
that's the first.
It's listed as an AHO. It's a genuine reason to have your firearms license. This club,
not in the first tier, in the second and third tier. So
Right.
so hunting. So the insurance and the genuine reason is provided in collaboration with HSSA, which is the Registered Hunting Organisation.
Yep.
So the second tiers are actually a combined membership where you get a membership with Hunting Trips Australia and the HSSA, and they are the body that provides those services.
Right.
And so that's the second one. And that's the major difference between the first tier and the second tier is the inclusion of the insurance, public liability insurance up to $20 million, as well as the genuine reason to own a firearm in Victoria, in Queensland, and in New South Wales, subject to having an R license. And then there's a third tier. So it includes, the second tier includes all the first and those things. And then the third tier basically includes discounts off selected hunts on the website, on Hunting Trips Australia, that for those outfitters that have decided to participate in that, as well as a bi-monthly guided hunt that's given away. And that's included in the premium, the platinum tier, which is the last one. And the middle tier actually also has products that are given away every month as well.
Yeah. So $9?
$9, $19.99 for the second one, and the third one is $29.99. And what's been really encouraging is that, like, just because I've worked in digital and web and advertising for so many years, you, like, just classically, and this, maybe Mark, you'll appreciate the psychology of this, but you put 3 tiers in a row, everyone always chooses the middle tier traditionally, just because it's like, it's not even, has nothing to do with money, has nothing to do with value. It's just like, give me 3 things, I'll take the middle one, thank you. But what's been really encouraging is that over this week, which is the first week that it's launched, most people have been buying the highest tier, which is, for me, that's really encouraging.
You've got hunts in this. You've got giveaway guided hunts once a month. That's value. That's great value.
That is value, yeah.
And I'd love to see, if you want to add this into your agenda for the muster or the get together, it'd be great to see a presentation of the successes of those hunts and how they went.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Because you're going to have 12 odd people going out there with well-known outfitters having the time of their life, like the experience of their life. It will be amazing. What a great offer.
Yeah, it's really,
get it now is what I say before the membership grows too big.
Yeah, well, I've wanted to say that, but I've been like, I don't want to say that at the same time.
You don't want to say it. I'm saying that. But
yeah, you definitely should. Yeah, you definitely should.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, and in terms of your aspirations for how this grows, obviously as many people and as many outfitters as you can possibly get, but you've put some thought into how that might look in 12 months.
Yeah, I'm already, like I've just said, I'm already having conversations with other retailers to get them on board to offer discounts. I'm already having conversations with other guides to get them on board to offer guided hunts, not just in the future, but also maybe cramming more into this year. I'm spending a lot of time investing in this club and pushing value into it, and I want to keep pushing. What I don't want to do is just set and forget and be like, all right, I built this platform that's largely automated and largely digital at the moment, and like, see you later, go make me some money. I want to continually put stuff into it because I want it to be successful, and I want people to enjoy it. I want people to get something out of it. I don't want it to become a crusty, bureaucratic, political, slow-moving body that's faceless and just takes your membership. I don't want that. Maybe explain the chuckling.
Yeah, that's generally what a club is.
Well, but the thing is, it doesn't have to be. That's the issue.
It doesn't. No, yes.
And you've got guys like yourself. This is what's tragic, and this is one of the reasons why I want to start the club, is because you've got guys like yourself who are really passionate about connecting hunters, really passionate about hunting ethically, really passionate about mentoring, really passionate about all the things that we love about hunting, that we want to see about hunting. And you get those people together and you form an incorporated body or an association or whatever it is, and you grow a business and it gets successful, and there's like resonance and authenticity and people are really enjoying it. And then it gets to the point where it's making so much money and its claws are so vast and its influence is so vast that it ceases to become effective and it ceases to become personable and it loses the very heart of it. But within it, it's packed full of individuals who are passionate. But it just becomes so complicated. It gets hard. It's hard to do anything. And I don't know. I don't want that for this club. I don't want that to happen to this club. I don't know how to prevent it yet, but I'm happy to learn lessons along the way.
It is. Look, that is a challenge of any organisation. That is a challenge. You tend to move towards bureaucracy, and there's reasons for it. You have to have a level of bureaucracy. People need to. If someone contacts you, they need to be responded to. That type of things. These things, there is a sense to it, but certainly. I've been involved, not in the hunting side of things, I must admit, in the shooting side of things. I've been involved in clubs that you've described quite accurately over the years.
Let me go on record by saying that I think, and I'll lean in, I think the ADA is fantastic. I have great respect for the ADA.
They've done a lot of work to change themselves from the previous description to a more modern organisation that supports the members. There's no doubt about that. It's got a ways to go, and it's made up of a lot of parts, lots of different branches and lots of different areas, and they all a bit different. But they are trying very hard, I think, to.
I think one of the strengths of what you're doing is, and if we kind of look more globally at some of the challenges of hunting clubs, is as soon as you cross borders, as in state borders, then you get into really it gets complicated, because all of a sudden different rules apply. So you can have a very, very successful localized hunting club, and there's a number of them where they're all within the same state boundary. So everyone's playing on the same rules. Everyone's getting the same opportunities or the ability to access the same opportunities. And then it's up to the individual to pursue those opportunities. As soon as you cross state boundaries, you get into a wholly different type of situation.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges of any club that stretches across the boundaries, because you've got a membership who have work in a different environment. Their idea of hunting is completely different. There's different rules. So I suppose with what you're doing, at least the fact that there's a hunting opportunity that's not necessarily state based is actually going to be attractive to some people, because if you're in WA or wherever it is, you can still have the same opportunity as someone else. It's not state-based opportunity, which is really the great arm wrestle, is the state-based opportunity, and the fact that it's so different. And one of the reasons why we started this podcast was, for many of us, we hunt more interstate than we do intrastate. We cross that border to go hunting, and then and for a lot of us, the clock starts ticking once you cross the border. So it's 3 hours, and now I'm going somewhere. So whereas that doesn't necessarily happen if you're localized. I like the idea of what you're doing is offering that opportunity without having those, or at least trying to figure out a way to get around those boundaries that stop people from having. And one of the things that we promote is whilst it's a hassle to go to New South Wales, you will get hunting access if you have an R license and you cross the border. You will get it. How successful it will be, we'll help you try to be successful, but if you do that, you'll get access. It exists. So I quite like the fact that there's an opportunity for people to get an equal level of access, or as equal as you can make it.
Yeah, it's one of the great benefits of the digital age is that it makes everything very, very flat, for good and for bad. And I know that lots of clubs are trying to pivot and take advantage of this. I guess I'm wanting it to be part of the DNA of this club right from the outset, is that it is a very flat membership and everyone is on the same level. And in some ways there are state lines, and in other ways there's not at all. Because everyone's just part of the same club, and it's not a Victorian club, it's not a New South Wales club. Now it has restrictions on what it can provide in terms of genuine reason in the states that it has access to, but that's more of that has less to do with the club and more to do with applications that are in process, and already there's things underway to extend the reach of that to include more states. So, yeah, it's a good thing.
Good luck with that, and hopefully you'll incorporate some New Zealand and other overseas opportunities into the monthly draws for those that are a part of it. So that'll be really good.
Yeah, like British Columbia would be nice.
Oh yeah,
Alaska.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Yeah,
it's a neighbour sort of. Go the other way.
yeah.
Forget New Zealand for a second. That's a neighbour.
Yeah.
All good. Okay, so huntingtripsaustralia.com.au.
Yeah. No,
Has-
huntingtrips.com.au.
Huntingtrips.com.au gets you to
Yeah.
the page, and you will find links to the club there. Or has the club got its own domain?
No, that's the same place for the club. So the website is huntingtrips.com.au, and then huntingtrips.com.au/membership is where you go to see the club.
Excellent. Okay, we'll post those links on here so that people aren't as confused as me. And I think that's been awesome. Also, I'll post the links to your Australian Huntsman YouTube page so people can find you there, and it'll allow people to understand who you are and why you're doing what you do. I think what I've taken away from this evening is we've sort of got to know a little bit more about the guy that's pulling this together for everyone. So appreciate that. It wasn't just a conversation about the clubs and the things you're doing, but I like the general chit chat as well. It gives us a bit more of an idea about who you are. So appreciate you participating in that.
Thank you for letting me come on.
No, it's great, Chris. Before we let you go, outside of all of that, what's on your personal hunting agenda for 2022? Do you have one, or is this just absorbing your life? And hopefully you'll get to show up to all of these giveaway hunts and see how people go. Is that what's going to happen?
Yeah. Unfortunately not. I won't be going on the giveaway hunts, but I made a commitment to the audience of the YouTube channel that I wanted to do more hunts, film more hunts, and go out and do more hunts. Because while I love doing the other stuff as well, I know that there's a taste for that, and people really enjoy the kind of dynamic nature of that. And so I'm already have a whole bunch of hunts lined up with a whole bunch of outfitters in Victoria mostly, but some in New South Wales as well, that I'm really excited about doing. And what's been amazing and what's been really exciting for me is, again, I'm a person who thrives on my isolation, on my own space. But the YouTube channel has been great in that it's forcing people at me. People like email me and saying, "Hey, Chris, I live in blah, 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 blah. Do you want to come out for a hunt with me?" And my immediate instinct is like, no, I like my own space. I want to sit home and read a book or whatever. Go away. Stop. But the part
Who are you? What do you want?
Yeah. But the part of me that knows better goes, no, Chris, that's a fantastic opportunity to connect with someone. It's good for you. It's good for them. Go do it. So I've got a bunch of hunts lined up with people from the community. I literally, not tomorrow, but on Friday, so it's Wednesday currently. Friday, I'm going and doing a red deer hunt in Northern Vic, and I'm really excited about that with someone I've never met before. And I'm literally going to drive up there. I'm going to leave at 4:00 in the morning, and I'm going to meet him in the dark and be like, "Hey, how you going, Rob? I'm Chris. Thanks for inviting me on this hunt." And we're going to hunt red.
I've seen this movie
on this property. Yeah, well, I'm going to film it too. So it's just going to I'm excited for it.
Make sure you live stream it so we all know where you end up. Right?
Yeah, you can find the body. Sure.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure it'll be absolutely fine.
Rob, I'm sure you're a fantastic guy.
No crazy
you're watching
social media.
Yeah, no, Rob's going to be great. I'm confident. Rob, please don't watch this.
Oh, that's awesome.
I don't even know Rob, and I'm defending him already.
Yeah, it's hilarious how we strike up relationships like that with people we don't know. But that's really good. Mark, did you have anything you wanted to close with?
No, look, it's been a great conversation. To your story about Rob, I did that in England, in Wales. No, not Wales, in Yorkshire. So I've done that. I was like, we're meeting these guides at this car park in the dark, in winter, in another country. Oh, okay, sure. Does anyone know does anyone? Yeah, I met him once. Oh, okay. So, it's not like we're going to be just going, "Hello, are you a hunting guide?" So, anyway.
I'll be the guy in camo or olive or whatever. Yeah.
Can I share this story to close off?
Go
conscious of your time, but
no, you're right.
I've done a lot of work over the years with non-for-profits, and there was one particular not-for-profit that I did work for when I was probably 18, 19 years old, and I was doing some volunteer work, and we were going out to Lawn near where Geelong is on the coast during schoolies, and we were helping support the schoolies of the year 12s who were out partying at the end of the year, making sure that they had access to water, making sure that everyone was safe. And so we were going out and we were doing that. And so it attracted a lot of young volunteers, and we were all housed in this single house. And so we're all sharing rooms and getting to know each other. And there's this story about one of my mates who was in this room that was allocated to him, and it was called the Princess Room. And we're like, why is it called the Princess Room? And it's this beautiful, big, pink, opulent bed with these kind of like sheer curtains kind of going up to the ceiling. And it was just like, and he was in this bed, and he was allocated this bed. There was another guy who was supposed to stay in the same room and be on this like sofa on the side of the room. And his name was Pete. But Pete was coming later that night. And so we all did the work. We were, looking after these schoolies. And then we all go back to the house, and we hop into bed at like 2:00 in the morning, and my mate's in the bed just sleeping, and then he wakes up about 4 a.m, and there's a tap on his shoulder, and the guy's like, "Hi, I'm Pete," and he's like, "Hi, I'm Pete," and then Pete just undresses, gets down to his jocks, and slides into the bed next to him. He's like, "All right, good night."
Like, didn't have time to say the couch is yours, champ.
Yeah, he was like, "Okay, we're strangers meeting in the night in our jocks in a bed."
Yes, I'm sure it's happened more than once, but you'll be safe. You're the next person doing this in the world that we're aware of. So be safe. Yeah. We'll see you on we'll see you on a Red Deer success.
Keen to see that one.
Hopefully.
Some big reds down there.
And if you want early access, join the club, and you'll get it before the rest of the world. Mate, awesome talking to you. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a great conversation. All the best with it, and I'm sure we'll stay in touch.